America, bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway live. If you are listening, you probably know I'm talking about former President Trump's speech last night where he spoke and said the obvious, cut number 15.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
Now, it was a long speech, much longer than I expected, and I'm curious what people who watched it, I watched it, and I was surprised when Fox News cut away and had to go over to C-SPAN, but Sean Hannity had on a couple of guests, and he had to bring him on, I think, and they commented mid-speech, which was unusual for me. I didn't expect that. Up to them, of course, and they want to remind people who they are and what they're doing, and Sean's got to do a signature ID, but they didn't go back to it, at least as far as I know, because I switched over to C-SPAN. I wanted to hear what the former president had to say. What did you think about it, Joanne in Florida? Good morning, Joanne. What did you think about it?
Glory to you, Hugh. What I thought of it was this. By the time 2024 rolls around, we need a street fighter in the White House. And his speech was meat and potatoes. You were sure about what he was saying. It wasn't abstract, and it was truthful. That's how I saw it.
So, were you a Trump supporter, and are you still a Trump supporter?
It's kind of like handling nitro with him, but I think if I had to choose between Trump and, say, other candidates, as I say, 2024, we need a street fighter, and he is a street fighter.
All right, Joanne, thank you. Melissa, also in Florida, did you watch it?
I did. I watched the whole thing, and I agree with the lady that was just there. I said we need someone who's going to do what they say they're going to do, and I think that's what frightens so many people in Washington is that Trump delivered everything that he said he was going to do for the American people, and we cannot. I don't know what the deal is with American people wanting to be nice.
But did he? Let's stay focused on the speech. Did he surprise you with anything he said or left out?
No, I do think that he mentioned more about us in this speech, like it is about us, versus the old Trump, where it was all about his accomplishments and what he had done. And I kept just saying all the time, but it's about the people. We elect you. It's about our country as a whole, not about you. So I think a little bit of the narcissism needs to be cured a little bit, but I think he did that last night. It came across as something that he realized that it's about the country and people they want someone that's about them. I think he kind of figured that out.
Melissa, thank you. John in New York. Where in New York, John?
Manhattan.
Hello, where are you in New York, John?
In Manhattan.
Okay, so what'd you think?
What I think was most surprising to me is last night is what a speech he should have given in 19 or 20. I voted for him in 16. I didn't vote for him in 20. I didn't vote for anyone. I just think, at some point, it felt just like the handlers had gotten to him, and he changed. He's trying to change his tune, but he's still the same person.
So, are you less likely or more likely to support him in 24 on the basis of what he said last night? Oh, thank you. Got to go because I'm joined by former New Jersey Governor Christie, who's really going to have an interesting take. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Hugh. How are you?
I'm great. I gave you a hard time yesterday. You said, well, you didn't ask me on, so I asked you on, and I'm glad you showed up. What'd you make of former President Trump's remarks last night?
Well, look, I think they were fine. As I've said before, I've known the president for 21 years and worked very hard for him. In 2016, as you know, chaired his transition and played Hillary Clinton in debate prep and chaired his opioid commission. And so, many of the policy things the former president talks about are fine, but I think, in some ways irrelevant in the current conversation about leadership in the party and trying to win back the presidency.
Does anything he said or did yesterday impact your decision, Christie, on whether or not you're going to run in 2024?
Not one bit.
And when will you decide that by?
Probably sometime in the early part of first quarter, second quarter of 23.
Now, last night he didn't say anything about the 2020 election, and I found that most surprising because it's a departure from his campaign rhetoric. What do you make of that?
Well, I'm sure he's being advised by people not to, and because it's a complete loser issue for our party, as it was shown on Tuesday night. But I have no faith or confidence that that'll continue.
All right, I want to go back to Tuesday night last. You and Mike Pompeo, with support from Kevin McCarthy, did the redistricting trust on Ron McDaniel. Thank God you did, because if New York hadn't been challenged, the Republicans wouldn't have won. Am I right about that assessment?
You're absolutely right. We picked up those seats in New York. And remember, Hugh, there were all kinds of people telling us that we were foolhardy for suing in New York. We'd never win. We got all kinds of criticism about the redistricting effort, yet we won the redistricting effort, and there is no doubt that if this margin turns out to be 219, 220, that the 4 seats that were picked up in New York that would not have been picked up under the original map are the difference in a Republican majority of the House. And I think, Mike Pompeo and I are very proud of the work we did, and we think now it's pretty clear that our work made the difference.
Now, Governor Christie, the New Yorker, has got the perfect cover this week. An elephant standing on a surfboard with very little water underneath it. So why didn't the wave come in?
Bad candidates, Hugh, first and foremost. Bad candidates in key states. Bad candidates in Pennsylvania. Bad candidates, who Dr. Oz, who could not win. Bad candidate in New Hampshire for the Senate purposes. And not a great candidate in Georgia. Fact is that Brian Kemp won that race by nearly 6 points, and to not be able to get over 50% in the Senate race with a governor running at that kind of pace above you is incredible. Bad candidate in Arizona in Blake Masters. And then on the gubernatorial side, bad candidate in Arizona in Kerry Lake, bad candidate in Wisconsin and Tim Michael, Tudor Dixon in Michigan, and the king of bad candidates, Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania. The one thing they all have in common is, well, they have 2 things in common. They were all endorsed by Donald Trump, and those endorsements were premised upon their acceptance of the lie that the 2020 election was stolen. And that's the only premise through which you get an endorsement from Donald Trump. And, I'm tired of losing, Hugh. I feel like, my years as a Mets fan, 2018. In 2018, we lose the House. 2020, we lose the Senate and the White House. 2021, we lose 2 very winnable Senate seats in Georgia. And now 2022, here we are, underperforming historic norms in the House, losing net 2 governorships, and losing in the Senate, 1 Senate.
Why did Governor DeSantis and Republicans in Florida do so well?
Well, a couple of reasons. I think, first off, Florida's now a red state. I think COVID changed Florida finally for what put them over the top in terms of, more Republicans registered now than Democrats. And a lot of the migration that happened during COVID sent a lot of successful people to Florida who are Republicans. Secondly, Governor DeSantis done a good job in Florida and ran a good campaign, and as did Marco Rubio. And so, but let's not kid ourselves. Florida's not Wisconsin anymore. Florida's not Michigan anymore. Florida's not Nevada anymore. Those are purple states. Florida is a red state now. But Governor DeSantis deserves credit for being a good governor and for running a very good race for re-election. And Marco ran a very good race for re-election to the Senate.
So, Governor, I expect you and Ted Cruz, Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, Ron DeSantis, and Donald Trump to run for president. And I don't think anyone else is seriously considering it who would be in that top rank. Maybe Larry Hogan. I'll amend that. 7. Maybe Nikki Haley. 8. If we get enough people to declare, when should you all start getting together to talk about it? Because we got to amplify winning messages and weed out losing ones.
Look, I think that I'd start any time. I think that what the RNC is talking about is not doing that until August, I believe,
That's
of next year.
That's a nightmare. That's such a Governor. I don't know if you can stay through the break. I will appreciate it if you can. Obviously I asked you for this segment, but if you can't, don't worry about it. But if you can, come back and talk to me some more, because I always love talking to Chris Christie. He is always blunt and to the point and honest with my audience. I'll be right back, America. Stay tuned. And my thanks to former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie for sticking around and talking to me some more. Because, Governor, when we went to break, you were telling me the RNC doesn't plan to put candidates on a stage until August. I don't know if you saw J.D. Vance, the senator-elect from Ohio. He wrote in the American Conservative about our small dollar donor disadvantage. It's significant. It's massive. One way to close it is to get our candidates on a stage talking about our messages. Why would the RNC wait till August?
I don't know, Hugh. I think they're doing the same thing they did 4 years ago. I think it's cookie cutter and it's easy, and I think that's what they're going to do. Now that can always change, and certainly candidates can make an agreement to go out there and do these things together as well. Me, Hugh, I've never been reluctant to get on the stage with anybody and have a conversation. But look, in the end of the day, what we need to do is to start talking about, as you said, our Republican issues, and we didn't win on Tuesday in the way we should have, because we ran bad candidates who were giving, not completely, but in the main, messages that were not credible. And I think voters just said, "Yeah, no, thank you. I don't know, thank you." In Arizona, now imagine this: Doug Ducey won by 13 points in 2014. And by 15 points in 2018. This should not have even been a close race in Arizona for the governorship there. And when we're not winning those kind of races, if we can't be competitive like you, statewide in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, there is no electoral math that gets a Republican the presidency.
Yeah, there's no
and
path.
so,
let me ask you, do you think Mitch McConnell should be reelected leader of the Republican caucus?
Look, I've never worked with Mitch McConnell, but I will tell you this. I think he does a very good job at managing a very unruly and difficult caucus. And so, from my perspective, I think Mitch McConnell is the leader of the Senate Republicans, and I think he should continue to be.
All right. Now, my last question has to do with China. Justin Trudeau got slapped around body language-wise by General Secretary Xi Jinping, and it's on tape, and we see him. I mean, he's just getting dismissed. He's being dismissed. China is our number one issue, in Hugh Hewitt's view, starting with banning TikTok. What does Chris Christie think about this?
Well, look, I said years ago, Hugh, that we should ban TikTok. I've been on this issue for years now, and there's no question. I don't think China understands anything but the stick in the carrot and stick analogy. I don't think they understand anything but, someone being tough with them. Because let's face it, they're thieves, Hugh. They steal our ideas. They steal our intellectual property. They steal from entrepreneurs in the United States, and they make no apologies for it. And that goes over into spying on us in things regarding national security. The islands in the South China Sea, where they've put military capability and bases that are going to impact potentially our ability to have trade. Look, the time has come for us to admit that the things that we did with China early about trying to encourage them, all it did was make them stronger. And they have not reformed in any way. And we need to now use the economic leverage that the United States still has to be much tougher with China. And
I think it's a national security emergency, Governor. It's a national security emergency that I think the Democrats are blissfully unaware of or refusing to talk about. And the president's meeting with Xi left me thinking of Kennedy and Khrushchev in Vienna in 1961. What do you think of the president and Xi?
No, look, Joe Biden is not equipped to sit across from President Xi and be a formidable force on behalf of the United States. And I think that was obvious from watching the two of them interact. I think we're spending a lot of time and energy on Russia as a geopolitical opponent. And I think what we're doing in Ukraine and supporting the Ukrainians is the right thing to do. But we're not focused on the real game. That's like being focused on the preliminary bout, the card of boxing matches. The real bout is us and China, and we better get to it, or they're gonna eat our lunch, you.
They are eating our lunch. That's why we need Republican candidates talking to each other about China and the Select Committee on China set up. Governor Chris Christie, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you, Governor. Short notice and you show up. Boy, I like that. At the Switzerland of the Republican Party, I'm Hugh Hewitt. All Republican candidates for president, welcome anytime. Come right back. More ahead.